Welcome to the Fine Print, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Caleb Teskey, and today I'm joined by Kelsey Raap from Green State Dispensary, as well as a number of other businesses in Burlington. Kelsey, thank you for being here today.
Thanks so much, Caleb. It's nice to be here with you.
And now, before we get into any of the business details, would you mind sharing your 5-minute life story with us, please?
Oh God. Okay.
Make it 10 if
Uh,
you'd like.
I wish. Okay. I didn't prepare that. Well, so my role with our company as the Director of Education and Outreach. I think that even as a kid, I knew that I would be in the botanicals space, but it's not what I went to college for. I grew up in Shelburne, Vermont. Grew up, with the woods in my backyard and a river in the backyard. And I think, like a lot of Vermont kids, spending a lot of time outdoors, um, playing in nature, connecting with nature. Gardening was a huge part of my family and my experience as a kid. I did move to California for college, ended up studying political science and environmental studies.
Where'd you go?
I went to Pitzer College, which is a really small liberal arts school. It's part of a consortium out there called the Claremont Consortium. Um, it was great for me because I think the values of that particular school reflect really well the values that we grow up with in Vermont. Putting community first, putting the environment first, thinking about how our actions and the externalities of doing business impact the world at large. So that was a really good fit for me. Southern California, San Bernardino Valley, not such a good fit for me.
Why not?
Oh, there's just a different ethos in that part of California. I found it very, there were more strip malls than there were playgrounds. There were more lots of cookie cutter housing and lots of I remember the first time I was a freshman and I borrowed somebody's car to run some errands, probably go to Target or something because we didn't have a Target in Vermont at that time. It was a big deal. Went to Target, tried to get back to campus and got lost in a neighborhood. And this was before iPhones, before smartphones.
Yeah, right.
So I couldn't find my way out of this neighborhood because it was like 7 neighborhoods all connected to each other and they all looked exactly the same. Um, so yeah, coming from like rural-ish small town, going to lots of pavement, lots of very visually similar developments.
It reminds me, did you ever watch that show, The Weeds or whatever?
Yeah, of
Where they
course.
say they're all made out of ticky tacky and they all look just the same.
They got it right.
Okay.
Yeah. And no shade to Southern California. There are parts of it that I really love. We weren't so far from Joshua Tree, the desert out there. That was really beautiful. Lots of fun camping out there. Um, yeah, different landscape, really cool to explore, just a really almost alien looking landscape.
The
Um,
desert is like that, huh? It's very
yeah,
foreign. Yeah, yeah.
just what the way plants evolve to survive out there is very different than what we get here. So it was cool to explore. It was great for 4 years. Um, really loved, I had like an international development focus to my studies. So when I came back, I started working for an international development nonprofit called the Institute for Sustainable Communities down in Montpelier. Great organization. But kind of after a time of being in development for that organization, which basically means fundraising, um, I decided I'd rather be on the side of giving money out than asking for money. So I was really fortunate. I found a job with Green Mountain Coffee Roasters in their corporate responsibility department and got to spend a few years looking at how corporations allocate funding for community initiatives, environmental initiatives. I was there during the transition from Green Mountain Coffee to Keurig Green Mountain. That was challenging. I think all Vermonters like felt that when it happened. Um,
Yeah, a lot of people got laid off, I feel like I recall.
a lot of layoffs, a lot of like the values of a company really have to change when you go from a private company to a publicly traded company. Um, yeah, the shareholders have the final vote,
And I
and
believe at the time, Green Mountain was one of the biggest employers in Vermont, if I'm not
sure was.
mistaken. Sure.
Yeah, I think it still might be because they still have a lot of manufacturing in Vermont. But it's just, with the with economic cycles, companies have to, deal with big layoffs and then big hiring waves also. So it's kind of part and parcel of being in that world. And I really enjoyed what I learned there. I learned like how can a company be responsible to the communities in which it operates, um, and the limitations that come with that when you have shareholders to answer to.
Mm.
So I was there for about 4 years, and then as I was leaving, my older brother had this idea to try to sell, basically to help people grow their own cannabis. So he was launching Green State Gardener at the time. And we started off as an e-commerce gardening supply website, basically just trying to uh, trying to get grow supplies into people's hands, and trying to help people who wanted to grow cannabis get access to the right nutrient lines without having to go to 5 different websites, and guiding people on the latest technology for lights, and to whatever degree we could, pushing as much of an organic and soil grown focus as we could. Nothing wrong with hydro, nothing against that, but it just wasn't our focus. A lot of companies were already covering that territory. So yeah, so I took the opportunity to embark on something a little bit closer to home when it came to like getting back to my roots in gardening, botanical wellness. Uh, my mom used to make a lot of elderberry tinctures and calendula creams when I was growing up. So
Cool.
this opportunity to give people a closer relationship with a highly medicinal plant and help them grow it for themselves felt right. And then, to start a family business back out of corporate America and into something, a startup, definitely, but also that I could help impact a little bit more directly.
Hmm.
So that was 2015. And 2016, we opened a physical store, Green State Gardener, on Pine Street. And not too long after we opened the retail store, maybe a year and a half, we decided to shut down the e-commerce side. There was just no way to compete with Amazon and growershouse.com and all these really
Sure.
big, massive companies that could order from China in truckloads and cartons,
Sure.
and sell for really razor thin margins. So fortunately, 2019, Vermont legalized grow your
Hey,
own.
hang on a second, Kelsey. I'm going to take you in the other room because they've busted out the leaf blowers outside.
Oh no, I can't hear it on my end if that helps.
Well, it's driving me insane.
Sure. Let's go for a ride.
Carry on. Carry on.
That's all right. Yeah, we just really focused on the retail side of it, um and it did really well quickly. I think people were super excited. We were a little early. We opened like 2.5 years too early for legal grow your own, but we had other categories we were selling. We were doing homebrew, and we were doing like DIY wellness stuff. So sauerkraut crocks
Oh,
and
sick.
make your own tincture kits.
Cool.
And yeah, just trying to give people tools to do more of their own plant-based remedies. And cannabis obviously tied into that really beautifully because CBD started to take off in 2017.
Yeah, I was going to ask how you guys made it out through the hemp crash there.
We made it all right. I think we're really fortunate because a lot of companies you know, a lot of, we had, first of all, we had a way to sell all of the hemp that we were growing
Mm,
because we had a hemp product line.
mm.
So 2017, we launched Upstate Elevator Supply. Upstate Elevator Supply is a CBD and hemp derived cannabinoid product line. And that has grown year over year. It's done very well for us. Right now we're distributed in about 40 states with
Wow.
about 400 retailers.
Oh shit.
And then we do a lot of our own direct distribution through our website.
Mm,
Um, so I think that the biggest challenge for anybody growing hemp at that time was if you didn't have a locked in buyer before you planted your crop,
yeah.
you were screwed.
Yeah. It
Uh,
seems like a lot of people sort of knew how to grow the plant, sort of maybe didn't make those arrangements or didn't have someone to process it, like,
Absolutely.
or I know there was a couple of sort of scam artists going around Vermont at that time, kind of swindling hemp growers.
Yes, there were. Yep.
Mm,
A lot of people trying to take advantage of the situation. Everybody, seeing it as like this amazing cash crop. But the truth is, there is a lot involved in post cultivation, like you
mm,
said, processing,
mhm.
and there weren't processors available yet. So it was like you process your own um, or you sit on it and it molds.
Uh,
Um, it was a steep learning curve for a lot of people.
mm,
We were really lucky, I think, that we already had an established brand. So we had an avenue to funnel all that hemp through. We did end up buying from a number of cultivators in that time also. Pretty soon our manufacturing outgrew our own cultivation. So we contracted for a while with Pete Johnson of Pete's Greens, and he was doing our organic farming for a little bit. We have brought it back in-house this season, which is really exciting. So 2023 product will have our own locally grown hemp. We're
cool.
doing it regenerative agriculture format this time around, trying to keep pushing that envelope and get a little bit, raise the standards for
Mm,
hemp production as much as possible.
mm. Sure. And the regenerative ag is something that I've not super familiar with, but that I've learned quite a bit about through these interviews, and something that I certainly find super fascinating.
It's the next frontier, right?
Mm,
Organic is fabulous. Everything that we can certify USDA organic, we do. However, it's not really enough. You're not taking steps toward soil remediation. You're not taking steps toward, reducing the overall inputs that are required to grow super high quality hemp. And with USDA certification not being possible for high THC cannabis, it's a really nice higher standard this industry could aim for, at least until federal legalization happens and organic certification would be possible.
mm. And who knows on that? Boy, I thought we were looking at least 5 or 10 more years, but recently it sure seems like they were kind of ramping up towards the federal. I mean, even
Might
states I
be.
never imagined getting in on the game are chomping at the bit. Like Oklahoma somehow got ahead of a lot of states got ahead of us, and it seems like we're moving in that direction quickly.
Yeah, well, I think when you see the projected revenue and tax income, it's easy to get both sides of the aisle on board.
You know,
Um, yeah,
I've
it's
said the same thing. I'm surprised New Hampshire hasn't jumped. Like Sununu is still over there sitting on his thumbs, and I really don't understand that one.
that's very surprising to me too.
I know
I
you're surrounded on all sides. All of that money is going to leave the state unless you do something, right? And he just like doesn't want to budge.
It's very strange.
Mm,
It seems like it would be a no-brainer. It seems like he'd have all of the public support for it, but maybe there's something else going on we don't know about.
mm. Maybe he's just mean.
Maybe just a jerk.
Can I ask you what it was like? Because you let's transition into the weed game here a little now, because you said you had to deal with the city council a little bit. And I know I read a couple of stories in the local press about those dealings. Would you care to share any of those interactions with us?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it wasn't um it wasn't like they were tense interactions. It was more that I think the Burlington City Council didn't know what they didn't know about what it would take to operate these businesses in the city. And as they started to maybe get more information or start to make some assumptions, new requirements for licensing kept popping up. So you think that you've got everything in, you think that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and then there's another requirement, a new occupancy permit, or a new for our indoor cultivation. There was new electrical standards put in place after we had already we had submitted everything. So I don't blame them. I think that they were doing their best. And I think that we're all making this up as we go, even though there are other states that we can learn from. Our economic realities are different. Our demographics are different.
Sure, and a lot of those other states made horrible mistakes.
Horrible mistakes. So yeah, I think a lot of both the control board and city councils in various towns are trying to learn from them and are trying to put some controls in place that will prevent some of like the domino effect that California has seen. But yeah, I think we all just were fumbling our way through it for a little while. And whatever, we're here now. Feels good.
Yeah, and can you tell us what type of licenses you guys got? Because I saw you got 3 approved on one day, I believe.
Yeah. So it was a surprise to us that they decided to bring them all up for the vote on the same day. But we got our retail license, our wholesale license, and our tier 1 cultivation. So
Indoor, outdoor?
Indoor.
Indoor,
Yep.
cool.
Right now, as far as I know, we're the only tier 1 indoor cultivation in Burlington.
Okay.
And for us, what that looks like is the room where we used to manufacture the CBD product line has been converted into an indoor grow space.
Oh, cool.
In the same building where we have our dispensary. So it's
Oh,
it's a
cool.
cool concept. We've got the grow store, the dispensary, and the cultivation, trying to kind of give people a way to have a relationship with the plant through all avenues.
Is that the first co-located dispensary with a cultivation?
In Vermont, I think it is.
Ooh.
I
And
know I've visited in Massachusetts, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think that's something people would really like, like, hey, where's this weed from? Like, oh, right behind that door.
Behind that door. Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping that we can get some video feed out onto the retail store eventually so that people can see what it looks like when it's growing, who are coming from places that you can't grow or just haven't had the opportunity yet.
Now, does that give you any type of security concerns? Because I know, like, especially out west, I've seen a lot of robberies, a lot of dispensaries getting robbed, a lot of people stealing plants, and now you go ahead and put them in one place. Does that give you any pause for concerns?
Not the plants so much. Honestly, it's the cash management piece that's the biggest security risk, without having without having non-credit union banking options, which means no credit cards, right? So
Sure.
Visa, Amex, MasterCard, all those networks are out. It's obviously a really cash heavy industry. We do daily deposits, so there's never more cash than has to be in the building at one time. The grow side, we worked with some security advisors. We've got really good protocols in place for securing and kind of gapping between the vaults and the safe and the offices and the retail store cultivation. We have a fantastic landlord who's worked with us hand in hand to help us make this property work for this complicated set of businesses. But yeah, it did require some pretty massive capital investment to retrofit the building, to upgrade everything. But I'm excited, so we got the cultivation license on the same day we got the retail and the wholesale. As a result of that, it'll be a couple months before we are able to sell our own flower. So we started that room up. Basically, we had a little like HVAC snag. So it started maybe 5 days after the retail store opened. So hopefully late December, early January, we'll have some of our own on-site
Sure.
grown flower ready.
Awesome.
Until then, we're working with cultivators that have been customers of ours for a really long time.
No shit.
Yeah, so we know what their growing styles are. We know what the quality of the flower is they produce. Yeah, and they've been known entities, cool people, trustworthy. Um, it's been really,
Would you care to share any of those companies that are growing for you? I've seen a couple. I see your packaging also, which is
yeah.
beautiful, by the way.
Yeah, well, the two that we've been able to onboard most recently are Doye's Smokies, who he's been buying cultivation supplies from us for a long time.
And you got one of the first licenses, I believe, like way
Yeah.
back in May. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And thank God, because like he's really, his flower has really been carrying the day for
No
quite a
shit.
few dispensaries, I think.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw they had some at Flora, I believe. I
yeah,
think Series was selling a little too, maybe.
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 Um,
Don't quote me on that.
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what series is carrying right now.
Hmm.
Um, and Mend Botanicals.
Oh yeah.
They're working with us, Extract Expert, Extract Vermont, excuse me, who's working with Rosie's,
Yeah, yeah.
Rosie
Yeah, I've
Infection.
seen the pre-rolls and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Um, those are the three that are on the shelf right now.
I like those guys at Extract.
They're great.
I'm a
Yeah,
big fan.
we've
Yeah, yeah.
reached out to lots of our customers who have been buying grow supplies. They're all really excited to bring in samples. We've got samples that we can't wait to buy. Testing.
Hmm.
Testing is blocking
I was
everything.
gonna. That's on my list here. I was gonna ask if you had any problems with the bottlenecking here. I see Steve Hill finally got their license approved, although I'm not sure if they're up and running yet. But I
Yeah.
know that was a big concern for a lot of people was going into opening day with just one fully functioning lab.
Yep. It rightfully so. It's been a challenge. We're ready to rock and roll with at least three other cultivators right now. They've got weight for us to buy in. We need testing, and
Yeah.
we can't bring it in without tests.
Hmm. And
Uh,
I'm hearing that their wait time is about 10 days here at this point, 10 to 12 days maybe.
that's
Or-
better than what I heard
oh
earlier
shit.
this week. I don't know.
Really?
I mean, we were looking at 14 to 16
Wow.
days
This
is
was
really
about
what
2 weeks ago where I heard that. So you might be more accurate at this point. I
yeah.
haven't been able to get anyone from Bio on the phone.
Yeah. Steep
Although
Hill
I,
is online now. They were
yeah,
completing their weights and measures. So they're gonna definitely free
cool.
some traffic up pretty
Yeah, I
quickly.
like them too. I ran into Callie and Holly at Winooski Organics the other day at their soft opening.
Yeah, good.
They
How'd
seem
that go?
great.
I was
Uh,
working, but I
It
wish I
went
could have
amazing.
made
I love those guys over there, Eddie and Dylan, really great guys. And when we see all of the flower that we're gonna see, I think that's gonna be a place people are gonna want to shop.
good. We need high standards, high quality,
Yeah, I
lots
think
of
you're gonna
variety.
find that in Burlington.
I think so.
You know, I'm curious to see what Tito's gonna be doing over there at the Burn Gallery. Also, I love Tito, and he's just got a beautiful location, obviously.
Yeah, we've been working with Tito for years. And yes, we're all excited to see what he comes up with.
He handed me a little pre-roll at the Headies, and I took about. I didn't even get it lit. I got the lighter to it, and then I had to put it out. I was just like, Jesus, Tito, what are you doing to me? So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's hopefully what we'll see coming out of Burlington. I
I
mean, that's
think
what
we
people are
will.
going to
I think
expect.
we're going to surprise the country. I think that like Vermont's really going to make a name for itself finally, because we all know that Vermont has produced incredible cannabis for years, but without branding and without packaging, the rest of the country didn't know that yet. So it's very exciting. I think it's gonna be a craft brew industry,
Mm-hmm.
the next craft brew industry. I do believe that.
I hope you're right about that. I hope it doesn't turn into Bud Light.
You'll always find Bud Light.
Sure,
You're always gonna find Beasters, but
absolutely.
uh, but it doesn't represent the state.
Sure, and some people like Bud Light. That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, there's nothing wrong. No shade on Bud Light.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I've drank a few myself.
yeah, sure. The cool thing has also been we've got about like I'd say maybe 65 to 70% of the people that walk through the door right now are coming with Vermont IDs. So 35 to 30% are out of state. Obviously, a lot of leaf peepers, some college students with out of state IDs, but it's great to hear the feedback from people coming from New York, from, Jersey, Florida, lots of people from Florida. I think that must be the leaf peepers.
Yeah,
Just super impressed with the flower that they're
sure.
getting.
Cool. That's what you like to hear.
Yeah.
And now, are you guys working? I feel like I have a note in here about cryobotanicals. I don't
Yeah.
know how I'm
Yeah.
supposed to phrase that question, but yeah, are you guys working with them for manufacturing?
Yep. Korea is our manufacturer
Yes,
for our value add products. So for gummies, capsules, tincture, and vape cartridges. We've been working with those guys also for a number of years. They did some of our hemp extraction 4 years ago. We also ended up, for a time, we were kind of sharing our employees with them, like co-employing the same people.
Oh, cool.
When we outgrew our manufacturing capacity, they moved over to Korea. So basically, 6 people that used to work for us on manufacturing now work for Korea. So we know
Gotcha.
that the quality of what they're going to do is going to meet our expectations. We've been doing lots of R&D with Dan and Bill over there. And what they're able to produce is just top of the line, in my opinion. Flavor, consistency, quality, really high standards to their facility, and lots of competency in their staff.
I talked to somebody over there, Matt.
Yeah,
Seemed like a great guy.
great guy. Yep,
We
he
had
was
a we had a
our
we had a
director.
way too long phone call. Sorry to interrupt you, but
Nice.
we
Yeah,
some of the phone calls I'm not expecting to go that long. It's like, oh, now we're on the phone for an hour and a half. Like, yeah, I like that.
yeah, he knows what
Mm,
he's doing.
And now, what do they have? Do they have a tier 3 manufacturing?
I think it's tier 3. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just
Mhm.
curious. I gotta say too, your packaging is lovely. I saw my buddy; he got some hash rosin gummies or something. The
Live
packaging is,
rosin.
yeah, that's
Oh,
really
yeah.
just beautiful. Who
Thank
who
you.
does your packaging for you? Who did the design?
Yeah, so we actually brought on a new director of brand, national brand. His name is Mike Gaddy, and he's really great guy. He's done, like, came on board maybe July and very quickly ramped up into producing some just beautiful packaging mock-ups. Um, I forget what agency he was with before. He was working for a marketing agency. They covered different brands like Sweet Baby Ray's. So if you ever saw some of those, like, very funny, very high production quality videos, that he's the guy behind Sweet Baby Ray's ad
Okay.
campaigns for a
Well, I
while.
think your logo just blows Sweet Baby Ray's out of the water,
Ah,
personally.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. It's been fun. Like, our stance is that it should be really enjoyable. The flavor, the experience, the quality of all the ingredients. Every edible that we make is vegan and gluten free. So try to
Oh,
let
cool,
as many people get into it as we can.
cool.
Um, yeah.
You know
Those
what?
live rosin gummies are killer.
I got some right over here from my dude Bushy Beard, who's waiting
Yeah.
on a license. Maybe when I check the meeting after this, we'll see who's got their license. But I really like the rosin gummies. Like, sometimes a distillate, like, and I know he said the distillate will sometimes give him a headache, and I've never got that from rosin gummies ever.
No, I can't imagine you would, because it's in our opinion, it's the most pure cannabis experience,
Sure.
because you're just getting the trichomes. So it's the terpenes and the cannabinoids and the highest potency of those, with none of the plant matter, which is where you can get some of that herbaceous soil type
Mhm.
flavor when you extract. And because it's not distillate, there are no chemical solvents being used. So it's just flash frozen flower, straight trichomes, pressed, live rosin, nothing better in my opinion.
I agree with you, and I hadn't even heard of live rosin until about February. I've always been a joint guy. Like, my
Oh,
my
sure.
first dab was 2010, And I always had a buddy who would handle the torch. I never wanted anything to do with that. I'd take one once in a while, but boy, I got a Puffco and tried some of that live rosin, and that seems like the way to go. I take a hit in the morning, I have one in the afternoon, maybe one at night, and I thought I was going to spend a lot more money too, dealing with concentrates, but really, I've saved money because I'm using so much less, and it's so much more efficient.
I think as long as you can stick to that level of use, I think the danger with concentrates is that your tolerance can go up wickedly fast.
Yeah.
And some of the negative comments we've gotten is, people saying, "Oh, I can't believe you're not doing concentrates. Can't believe your cartridges aren't going to be over 60%." Obviously, we can't control that. But folks telling us like the 24.49% purple punch that we've got right now isn't strong enough. I'm like, okay, like that's totally that's your opinion. You're welcome to it. But I would bet that those are people that are mostly using concentrates.
Sure. And you've got a lot of people out here who are strictly waiting for the concentrates to hit the shelves so they can grab those, people that
Absolutely.
don't even smoke flower anymore.
Yep.
I
It's
do.
I
I'm,
yeah.
I'm almost 40 and I still love smoking a joint. 20 milligrams of edibles still puts me to bed.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, the 5 milligram threshold has been hard for some people because, you buy 5 milligrams, 50 milligrams per package. You spend $30 on a package. If you're a 20 milligram per person per day or per night person, it's not going to last you very long.
But and how have you guys dealt with that? This is one thing that's on my list to ask you about is that, the vape tax, the
Mhm.
THC caps, and the edible limits.
Sure. I mean, we comply with them naturally.
Sure.
So, we're limited. If we were able to do a higher per package total, we could get the per serving cost way down for the customer.
Mm,
So even if they still capped it at 5 milligrams per serving, but they let you do 500 or 200 milligrams per
yeah.
pack, you could still have a much more affordable serving for the customer. So that's been challenging, and we want to give people good value. It's hard right now. I think that they're getting really good value for the quality of the edibles that we're doing with Kriya. But yeah, for people that need 20 milligrams a day, for medical patients who are coming into the rec dispensary because either their med dispensary has gone out of stock on what they want, or they're looking for something more convenient for them. That's an issue. The 5 milligram cap is an issue, especially for
Sure.
medical patients.
Sure.
And
And as someone, you guys, as someone who's kind of environmentally conscious, as it sounds like you are, I mean, it seems like we're making a lot of extra packaging. If
Oh,
you could
yeah.
put 500 milligrams into one package instead of 50, now you have 10 times less packaging in the edible portion of this market.
That's a great point. Yes. I think where one of the biggest challenges has been sourcing packaging within the control board requirements
Mm,
that doesn't drive up the cost just really high for the consumer. Compostable materials are like 4x more expensive, which gets passed on to the consumer if you don't have another option.
sure.
And I'm all for compostable options, but until there's greater demand in the market, they're going to continue to be 4 times as expensive.
And
Um,
when I walk through a grocery store, it seems like a lot of these food companies are not beholden to the same rules. Like
Not
everything's in
at all.
plastic. Everything's
Not at all.
plastic. None of it's recyclable. You got throwaway food containers, and it makes me wonder, like, sort of why the onus has been placed on cannabis companies to sort of lead the way in this charge.
Yeah, I mean, my only guess is that it's a new industry, so they get to start over with regulations. So I would like to give the legislature the benefit of the doubt, and if they were launching any new industry, they'd put these requirements in place. It does suck that we're the ones that have to bring the cost down from packaging manufacturers and get great enough demand in order to make them affordable.
Mm,
Uh, but I think aside from just the cost, these are not large manufacturers yet. So the supply chain is also challenging.
Sure.
Like our gummies have been I love the tins that the gummies have been in. We're going to have to switch from tins to jars. And then I think we're going to hopefully switch again from jars to compostable bags, packets, once we can work with that manufacturer a little bit more and get some cost savings.
Now, what if you could just have like, what if you could sell me some gummies and I could come back to your store with the empty jar and you could just put more gummies in it? Is that something you would take part in if that was allowed?
Good question. I
Hey,
think we'd have to think about that. Yeah, well, we'd have to think about it a lot because there's the level of oversight on bulk goods is higher than any other industry, right? So you have to be able to account for every single gummy. It's a lot easier to ensure that that's happening if you received the gummies packaged.
Wow.
We had big containers of gummies in the back and we're telling employees to go scoop them in.
Sure.
We have to be able to track every single gummy, right? We have to track every single gram of flour. The other day, somebody accidentally dropped a jar. It fell on the floor. Now that eighth of flour that has little glass shards in it has to be destroyed, and we have to account for that. So even like all the stems that we clip out of bulk flour that we're packaging in our package gets weighed and accounted for. Most of the stuff we've got is trimmed really nicely. If there's a little buds that need to be trimmed, we'll trim those. And it's all got its own column for how it gets tracked. So I think bulk refills are going to be tricky until tracking is less onerous. But I love the idea. We have people bringing back the flour jars and asking if we can reuse it. Legally, I don't know if we can. You might be able, like you can't do that with food containers. If you bring a food container back to a restaurant and say, just put it back in the to-go container that I got from you last time.
Sure.
Can't do it for health and safety reasons.
But if you went to a farmer's market, you could roll up like, hey, I brought my own bag, and they could drop it in there.
Yeah.
So maybe we could combine those kind of ideas and like one thing I really thought was like pre-rolls. Like, do we really need a plastic container or a glass container for
glass jar for every pre-roll?
For one joint, like I saw, and nothing against Series, I hate to harp on them, but I saw a pre-roll from them. It had 24 grams of packaging for a 1 gram pre-roll, and that's not counting the bag that they have to put it in when you walk out the door, because God forbid someone see you leaving the weed store with weed. But that's going to be, now you're looking at 30 grams of packaging for one joint. And I feel like, why can't you just hand me a Lucy, a Lucy situation here? I think would really save a lot of manufacturing processes. It'll save us from making all these labels and the caps and.
So like the answer to that is you wouldn't be able to put the THC potency, the cultivator license number or the manufacturer license. So, the control board requires THC potency, the license number of the manufacturer, a barcode that links that your POS can read, because the control board can have access to our back end POS anytime they want and find out like if all the product that we are selling lines up with the revenue that they're seeing going into our bank account.
Sure.
So the logistical answer is there's no way to comply with control board requirements without packaging. But I would love to see that. That would be really cool. It's crazy right now. The two cultivators we've been able to source pre-rolls from thus far, Family Tree. Oh, they were the first ones that we got it in from. Love those guys.
Yeah.
We've been working with the Lanzas a long time.
I tried to have them on, but their internet connection sucks, and I couldn't get it. Yeah, I really like them too.
Keep trying. They're wonderful.
They seem like great people.
Yeah, great cultivators, great family. But everybody, it's glass jars, it's glass vials. That's the option really to be compliant with the recyclability policy. And And I don't know what everybody's going to do with all these glass jars they collect.
Yeah, right. Like it seems like you should just be able to throw another joint in there and send your customer on your way, and instead of having to
Yeah,
recycle it and all. I don't know. It seems like a lot of extra processes for a very simple transaction.
it does. Yeah, on the front, on the production end, it's a lot of processes. If you then put that onto the sales end, like, customer facing side,
Mm.
um, right now, so the way that we staff the store right now is 3 bud tenders, a gardening, so somebody who can cover the Green State Gardener register and sales, a manager on duty, and a security guard. And with that much staffing, we still can barely keep up with filling inventory, packaging, flour, transacting sales, cash management, and then all the other stuff that just has to happen to make an office and a business flow. Like
I believe you said
ordering
earlier you had to
or
bring on
whatever.
some extra staff, and you kind of weren't aware of how many staff you might need, and had to do some extra hiring.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to go back to some of the candidates that we really liked, but didn't have the flexibility that we were hoping for, or didn't have the days that we were hoping for at that time, and see where they're at. Because we do need, I think it looks like we need at least 2 more part-time and maybe 1 more full-time person, to cover all the activity that's happening each day.
And I
Um,
saw you stole Sarah from Stash and Stow. I was gonna go visit her, and right as that happened, she closed her store and moved over to you. So
yeah, yeah. I like to think that we attracted her to
yeah,
us.
I didn't. Sorry to use the word stole, but
No, that's okay. That's okay. She owned Stash and Stow, and
mm,
she wanted to, she had planned on closing it before we actually were recruiting for a director of retail operations. Um, our former retail director decided that she kind of needed a break from retail. And she was the one who said, this really cool woman, Sarah, is planning on closing her shop. You guys have to interview her. We did. It was a match made in heaven. She's fabulous. She's run her own shop for 15 years. She and her husband still retain their glass blowing studio in Burlington. She came on board with incredible connections in this industry, and a really good attitude. And she built a great team of retail staff around her. So I have every confidence that Sarah is going to knock this out of the park
are
with
you
us.
guys are you guys going to be selling glass there?
We do. Yeah.
Oh,
We
cool.
sell some of the glass. So some of the inventory that she didn't, get rid of before she left Stash and Stow is on the shelves. So yeah, lots of local Vermont artists,
Awesome.
um, some, 25, 35, $40 stuff, some 100, $200 stuff. I think over the next few months, we might get a few show pieces in. We have actually 2 show pieces that are up top that are absolutely
Cool.
gorgeous.
I
Yeah.
saw my buddies at Higher Elevation bought one of those pieces from the Pipe Classic. Woo,
Nice. Nice.
I didn't realize Tito's friends were all gangsters like that. My lord.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've met a lot of glass blowers, but that was some next level shit right there. Mm.
Yeah, he throws a
Um,
party.
well,
It's sad that that was the last one, but
yeah,
yeah.
I'm glad I got to be there. I got to go to the after party a little bit and meet some of the glass blowers. I've never felt like such a fanboy in my life. Like I,
Nice.
I felt like I was meeting sports like celebrities here. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
god, hey, can I say hello to you?
You
That
have
was
a
a nice.
collection?
What's that?
You have a collection, a glass
I
collection?
used to in college. I had about a $10,000 collection of ridiculous glass, and I had to
Nice.
sell it all off, and I to pay my rent at the end. But I've always like these earrings. My friends in Lindenville used to make these. They had a contract with Hot Topic. It was called Liquid Glass. So like
Cool.
they used to just let us come down to the studio and watch them make pipes and make earrings and stuff. And I loved hanging out with glass blowers, man. They're good people.
They are such creative. I mean, they're
Mm.
artists through and through.
Mm-hmm. So what else did we not talk? I wanted to talk to you about the vape tax. I don't know if you have any comments on that, but I know a lot of people are. Well, I
Yeah.
haven't met anybody who's supported it yet, and I feel like it's holding up. It's really going to sort of make the vape market sort of unaffordable for retail
It
dispensaries here in
is.
Vermont.
Yeah, it is. It's gonna happen. So, unlike the excise tax, it won't be a tax that the customer sees on their receipt. It'll be a tax at the wholesale level. So when we buy our cartridges from Korea, the tax will be incorporated into their price to us, which then naturally has to get passed on to the customer to some degree.
I mean, with a 92% tax, it's going to get passed along.
It's got to some degree. The other real frustrating piece is all of the legal states around us are selling cartridges that don't have that tax incorporated on the wholesale, and they're over 60%. So you're going to be buying a 0.5 gram cartridge with 60% THC for, I don't know, maybe 40, 50, 60% more than you could get it in Massachusetts or Maine. So I think that's going to cut into the overall industry and the overall potential for growth and for sales significantly.
And it
I
seems like that's a hot part of the market. It seems like
It's
everybody's vaping.
I can't tell you how many people are, we get 16 to 20 calls a day asking if we have vape cartridges yet. And then when we tell, so we expect to get them in probably first week in November. But I mean, I'm telling people right up front, and they're going to be 60%. And they're like, what? What do you mean? I can't, that's worthless to me. I'm like, okay. These are mostly people calling with an out of state number. So, maybe looking to sort, maybe they're from New York, maybe they're from, they're just visiting, I don't know what, but they're accustomed to buying in other legal states at a price point that's reasonable, at a potency that they're used to. And it's gonna get us some bad reviews, among other things.
Right, even though this is totally out of your hands.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's a bummer, because I feel like that is going to happen. And really I mean, specifically with the vape tax, this seems to fall squarely in the lap of the legislature here.
It is. And I know Tito's one among several who have been pushing really hard to try to get that eliminated from the cannabis industry. If you want to leave it on tobacco, fine.
Yeah, that was for Juuls, right? They wanted to get rid of Juul pods because kids were smoking Juuls, and I understand that. You don't want kids fucking smoking Juuls, but somehow they wrap the cannabis products in with the tobacco products.
Right. Any inhalable plant substance is what ended up.
Well, even an empty I just went and read it the other day. So even if you sell an empty vape cartridge, that still counts as a tobacco product.
Yep. Yeah.
Which
is
odd, even though
could be used. Right. Yeah. Right. For all the people smoking tobacco out of their bong, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I went to college with one kid. Word up to Bob Stanford. He used to smoke tobacco bong rips, and he was an absolute savage. I love the kid, and I tried it once, but holy shit, that just does not work very well.
That'll rock you a little too well.
What up, Bob? Yeah, and from what I've heard of the THC caps as well, the two people who really were pushing those are not running for those seats again. So I'm hoping, personally, as a cannabis user, I'm hoping to see those lifted, because I don't want to have to see, a lot of these guys have been dialing in their manufacturing processes for years, and suddenly they have to go back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, how do we bring this down to a level that satisfies the legislation, And I don't know. I think we should let those guys work and do their thing.
I know. I'm with you. You're going to bring it down by cutting it with CBD or terpenes or both. And that just changes the experience entirely. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of combining THC and CBD. I think is a really beautiful combination for a lot of different uses, effects, benefits. But people should have choices.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. I've tried some of the carts that have been mixed with CBD oil, and I quite like them. Mm-hmm. They actually, it seems like the CBD oil in some cases helps them flow better towards the end, because some of the carts will get gunked up.
Makes sense.
You gotta fish face on them. Like the CBD oil ones, don't seem to have that issue as much, which I also like.
Yeah, for sure. We sold CBD carts at the grow store. We've been selling them for 4 years now, people love them. Cool. It's like people use them to help with smoking cessation, like tobacco cessation.
Just pure CBD carts.
Yeah, full spectrum with terpenes. and like tweaking the terpenes. So it's either a relaxing blend or a focusing blend.
I might have to try that, Kelsey.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Um, oh boy, I got a few more left for you here.
Sure.
One thing I wanted to ask you about was POS software. What are you guys using for POS software?
We're on Dutchy.
Dutchy? Cool.
Leaf Logics is sometimes what you call their their POS. Everything's about to become Dutchy skinned, but used to be Leaf Logics. Dutchy manages both inventory and point of sale. So as we have our wholesale license and our cultivation license, we can do it all through Dutchy.
Hmm. Did you explore any of the other options? Because I've only seen like two other options, really.
Yeah, our operations team did. Ultimately we went with Dutchy because it can do cultivation, inventory management, and POS. I don't know that the other softwares could do all three.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it so far. Honestly, I think Dutchy's great for point of sale. I know that it has some limitations on inventory and production, especially for like inventory production. And it's complicated and not super uh the user interface is not great for cultivation. But for point of sale, for retail, it's working really well.
Okay. Hmm. Now, what was the other thing I was going to ask? Oh, I had one more good one, and then
Ah.
it slipped my brain right here. Oh shit! I'm having a stoner moment. It's this weed. I gotta tell you, this is some Fierce Cultivation. This is from Mike and Jimmy at Fierce Cultivation, and
Nice.
that peanut butter breath sometimes puts a little hole in my brain.
Uh-oh. Well, let me tell you a little bit about our THC product line, because you mentioned
Yeah,
the gummies that we have.
please do.
So Upstate Elevator Supply has been our CBD product line since 2017. We launched Upstate Elevator Operators to cover our THC product line. And I think that what we're aiming for with that is just like we have with the CBD line, super effective, super high quality, and delicious. So if you have to, like right now, if you have to taste your CBD, it doesn't always taste great.
Oh god, it's not a good taste.
It tastes good. I guarantee it. I would wager anything on this. We have the best tasting CBD gummies, and we're gonna have the best tasting THC
You think
gummies.
so?
I think so.
I'll
Yeah.
put you to to
We'll
challenge
do
on that. Yeah.
start, you get your collection together. I'll send you a sample or two.
I'll come to Burlington tomorrow.
Test. All right.
Oh,
Cool. Perfect.
banking. Banking is what I was going to ask you about. If you care to share, who did you decide to go with for banking, and
Uh,
how did you feel about the process as it played out? Because I feel like banking they sort of added last minute. That was like the kind of the last step, and they said, "Hey, we're going to take a bunch of extra fees from people."
Well, we knew it was always going to be a credit union, right? That's the only option. We're with VSECU. I think just like all the other pieces of this industry, they are figuring out what kind of oversight and logistics are going to be necessary to keep risk low and to to facilitate everybody's business needs without throwing their own operations out of whack. The cash management has been one of the most challenging aspects because it's all cash and can't pay for things with credit cards. Debit cards have a $5,000 cap on them. So if you have a huge expense, like you're paying for a lot of manufacturing inventory, jars, lids, stickers, whatever, ACH payments or checks are the only way that you're going to be able to do it. So there's always going to be this lag in when people get paid. That's also hard for people that are operating cash businesses because they need to pay their employees in, ideally with like some kind of a direct deposit, but not everybody can accommodate that. Not all individuals can accommodate that. So I think the credit unions are discovering a lot of processes that have been standard that aren't going to work for the cannabis industry, and they're kind of putting some requirements in place in order to try to make some accommodations. But VSCCU ran out of ones the other day, and I think us and Ceres have stolen all the ones in Burlington.
Right. And VSCCU had to stop taking accounts, which I assume means they bit off a little more than they could chew, but at least they were willing to recognize that and say, hey, we can't take anymore. We got to stop.
Yep. Yeah, I understand. Like there's just so much more oversight, logistical management to this whole industry than anybody had a reality, like a real sense of. I think we all anticipated that, but we couldn't get a real sense of it till you're in the middle of it.
Mm.
So
it's like what Mike Tyson says, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Right. There you go. Right. This face punch is a welcome one, though.
Okay.
Lots of business, fast paced. Yeah, these are all good problems to have, honestly.
Well, the one other good problem, well, this isn't a good problem. I wanted to ask you about the 280E tax code real quick, because
Sure.
It seems like that might be a bad problem where retail owners especially are not allowed to write off any of their costs.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's basically, it means the potential margins that you can have on cannabis retail is much lower than any other retail business. So I think it will reduce the number of people that want to open retail shops. I think it will make the tax burden a lot more challenging to plan for. I think it will mean some pretty heavy auditing happening. Like we all just assume we're going to be audited because
yeah.
So we need to have our bookkeeping super tight and really locked down. We work with an excellent bookkeeper and just hired a part-time CFO. We also work with a CPA in Maine who's been doing this for their industry for a long time. So yeah, I mean, it's like the appeal of doing a lot of business daily is awesome. The reality is your margins are going to be a lot lower than a clothing store. You're limited to writing off anything related to cultivation and inventory management, and everything else is not can't be a write-off.
Right, like payroll taxes and workers' comp insurance, stuff like that.
Nothing. It's just cost of goods. So cost of goods counts, inventory management. So payroll that goes to people who are directly responsible for tracking your inventory, and cultivation. People that are directly responsible for cultivating and the supplies that they need to buy in order to do that. But all the other payroll, nothing else has a write-off opportunity.
Does that feel, and this is a question I've asked a lot of people, does that feel in any way like discriminatory to you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it feels like we're not trusted to do business above board, is what it feels like. But it's not surprising. And I think that we need to have a year of being really good corporate citizens and showing that those of us in the cannabis industry are really good at making sure that this is serving the customers and the population and the state in a way that voters want it to, which, although we don't have, referendum opportunities, we know that this is what Vermonters want. And I think we just need to be really good, keep our noses clean, follow the rules for a year, and hopefully demonstrate that they can trust us to do good business.
And I hope everyone was listening to that. Follow the rules. Don't fuck around.
Don't fuck this up for
No,
us.
I mean, it does seem like they're looking for any little reason to point the finger and say, "See, we told you these stoners are irresponsible," and I would like to see everyone not give them that reason.
Yes, amen. Me
Mm,
too. I mean,
mm,
that's like, and not bully out small scale retail operators,
mm,
like the level of complexity to do this in a compliant way will make it really difficult for mom and pop type stores to succeed.
mm. Bummer. I hope we
Yeah,
don't see that.
I know. Me
Mm.
too.
Now, Kelsey, before we leave, will you turn around and grab one book off your shelf and show us what you're reading?
Whoa, God, this is what I have so many. A lot of these right behind me are
What do you
the
got?
this is what, so I do a lot of cooking, a lot of
Cool.
plant-based. I mean, I'm not vegetarian, but
All right, pull one more off now. Let's see what else you got.
based wellness.
Let's do two. Bang. All right.
There you
Cool.
go. Jorge, good
Beautiful.
friend of ours.
Cool. All right, Kelsey, I want to say thank you for your time. It's a pleasure speaking with you. I wish you the best of luck, and I always leave the last word for my guests. So this
Oh,
is all you right now. Thanks so much, Kelsey.
thanks. Well, thank you for having me, Caleb. It's really, it's an honor to be able to represent this industry a little bit and to represent our company and our brands. And I can't wait for more people to come and talk with us. So come on down, see us at the dispensary, check out Upstate Elevator Operators, greenstatedispensary.com. And I can't wait to do it again.
We'll check in a few months.
All right, sounds good.
Take care, Kelsey.